Welcome to Ranting and Raving. Today's video is follow-up to the last video about the signing of Derek Carr. Last time, we were taking the position of the optimist. Today, we're going to take the position of the pessimist. Obviously, well, I would think it would be obvious, but neither of these are necessarily where I think things are going to end up, but more to the two extremes of where they could end up. So, on the optimist side of things, with a perfect offseason, get the old line healthy, Michael Thomas comes back, Juwan Johnson comes back, DA makes major adjustments and learns major lessons from last year's mistakes. The defense improves or at minimum stays the same, but really would need to improve. Like all of these things happen, and Derek Carr is the best version of himself, and is able to cover up for the weaknesses in Pete Carmichael as a play caller with his ability to recognize and read defenses at the offensive line, blah, 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 blah. Like, in a weak NFC, is it possible to make the Super Bowl? Yeah, it's not a 0% chance. So, optimistically, that's what you're going for, or at least the divisional round of the NFC Championship. But that's not what today's conversation is about. So, again, this is pessimistic. What if everything goes wrong? What if DA didn't learn lessons? What if DA still is incapable of making adjustments? What if Pete Carmichael is still incapable of making adjustments? What if the offensive line doesn't stay healthy? What if Michael Thomas comes back and he gets hurt again? What if Olave or Shaheed get hurt? What if the defense takes a major step back because they have exactly zero quality defensive linemen, which if anything happens to Cam Jordan is pretty much the case. What if Demario Davis gets hurt? And he's out and misses a significant period of time, and you have a weak linebacking core because you're not able to keep Caden Ellis, and you don't really have a lot of depth there, and you already have a slow defense with bad nickel corners and just no speed anywhere. What if that happens? Well, the Saints probably aren't going to have a top 5 pick because the roster is good enough, the schedule is weak enough. They're probably going to win 5 or 6 games. But that's probably where you'd be sitting at. And it would be another repeat of last year, except without all the excuses. Because if you go into this year and it's the third year in a row you have tons of injuries, it's not, oh, well, what if they were healthy? It's maybe this is a team full of guys who are just constantly hurt. Maybe it's bad roster construction. Maybe it's poor depth. Maybe it's, poor cap management and poor resource allocation. Maybe it's unrealistic viewpoints of the team and poor self-scouting and understanding of your roster and really where you stand. And that quarterback, while Derek Carr is a good quarterback, he is a quantifiably verifiable good quarterback. Is he someone who makes the players around him better, or is he someone who can just execute with what's given to him? Well, the optimist would say he can make guys better. To what degree remains to be seen. But the pessimist would say that we've already seen the best of Derek Carr in Oakland, and that version isn't going to come here, and isn't going to be here under Pete Carmichael. And the Saints aren't going to have a possession receiver to extend plays, and they're going to lose Alvin Kamara for most, if not all, of the season. And their board's just not going to line up well. And they're not going to get any talented running backs in the draft. And they're not going to be able to sign one in free agency. And Benjamin is going to be RB1. Or the corpse of Mark Ingram is going to be RB1. That's a real possibility. There's a non-zero chance everything I just outlined happens. Is it the most likely? No, it's probably about as likely as the Saints winning the Super Bowl on the other side of the spectrum. Everything going wrong. The O-line getting hurt again. Ramchek's knee exploding. Penning is either a disaster or hurt again. Peyton Turner, worst case scenario for him might be he's on the field instead of just DNP coach's decision. but he's not doing anything and he's constantly giving up huge plays. Like, that's a thing that could happen. This isn't some bulletproof roster. This isn't some roster loaded with young talent. We don't have a ton of speed, at least on defense. On offense, we actually do have a ton of speed. Really, they need a playmaker at the running back position, no question. They need to shore up the offensive line, and they need a possession pass catcher, whether it's another tight end or a wide receiver or both. But by adding Derek Carr, you're pretty much securing, provided Olave and Shaheed don't get hurt, you're pretty much securing at least an average level offense, which is a significant upgrade from last year. But an average level offense with a declining defense, with a propensity to get beaten out in the flats and beaten by any team with speed, with a head coach who can't coach his way out of a paper sack. And remember, this is the pessimist point of view, and the pessimist says that the guy who's won 5 games or less far more times than he's won 5 games or more in his professional coaching career, which out of 5 seasons, more than 5 games, one time. Ah, not a lot to be optimistic about. And it's pretty easy to see that team with that roster under those circumstances massively underperform. And you're going into 2024 pretty much. Do we need to tear everything down? Do we need to get rid of everyone who isn't a young and up and coming player and all of these coaches and jettison all of it? Because as it turns out, the guy who wasn't a good coach in Oakland, surrounding himself by the guy who wasn't a great quarterback in Oakland, with a bunch of coaches who were also not good in Oakland, wasn't good in New Orleans. That's a real possibility. Again, I don't think it's the most likely. It's not my prediction for what's going to happen. But if you don't think it's a realistic possibility that this goes very, 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 very badly, you haven't been paying attention to the last couple of years, and you really haven't been paying much attention to Dennis Allen. But, you know, the next video will be where I actually think things are going to land, and it'll be a little bit more analysis of the roster going into the draft and free agency. But hope you enjoyed the video, and as this is the pessimist point of view, I hope everything I just said is horribly, horribly wrong. Because I do not want to deal with another 2022 season. I just don't.